Hi! We got several people joining us. I'm just gonna let people join us first before we start. Hey, Steph. Yes, give me love. I'm gonna give it like 2 minutes before I start. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna start with my introductions first. Hi semuanya. Hi, welcome. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are having a jolly good day. I'm Cynthia and I'm the co-founder of Project Planet ID, and I'm very excited to talk to you guys today about Omnibus Law. But before that, let me introduce Project Planet ID first. So Project Planet ID is a non-profit organization and we were established this February. We aim to centralize all information about environmental and social issues in Indonesia. We're also a community-based online platform that supports sustainable living. So you guys can go ahead to projectplanetid.com to check out our features such as the blogs, our articles, Peta Bank Sampah, our forum, and much more. You can also check out our recently launched feature called the Green Living Project, which is the ultimate guide to sustainable living in Indonesia, and we have over hundreds of sustainable brands in Jakarta and Bali, with the categories F&B, groceries, fashion, organization, and community, and you guys can go ahead to our website and check that out. Okay, so that's a short introduction, and people are coming in. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kaya Heritage. So without further ado, today we'll be talking about the hot and spicy topic, Omnibus Law, or you guys might know it as RUU Cipta Kerja. There's a lot of anger and confusion surrounding this topic, and we would like to discuss the environmental side of things today. Today we'll be joined by a very good friend of ours, the incredible woman lawyer, Reina, or her full name is Sharifa Rehana, and we're going to be talking about what is Omnibus Law and why are environmentalists so angry about it, and what are the possible implications of this law towards our existing environmental monitoring and protection law in Indonesia right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and invite her in. Sweetie. Amazing. Hey Reina.
Hi,
Hope you're having a great Sunday. So
I
happy to have
am.
you
How are
here.
you?
I'm
I'm
good.
happy to be
I'm
here.
good. Yes. Um, Today we're just gonna have a casual talk about omnibus
Yep.
law. The environmental aspect of it. So Reina here is not only an amazing lawyer, but she's also the co-founder of Uncovering Indonesia. So Reina, would you like to tell us a little bit about what Uncovering Indonesia is?
Okay. So, you can hear me, right? All good?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
the Uncovering Indonesia, it's a new platform podcast thing that I just started for fun. We talk about, issues in Indonesia, but we relate it with the relevance, like relevant laws and regulations. So
Yeah.
far, I mean, we've already had like a few episodes, but so far we talk about the RUU, we talk about the new normal policies, and the reason we want to do this is because we want like English speakers to also know what's going on in Indonesia, the issues and why it's happening, what are the basis for it. And we also want to address some of these issues because we see that, like in the media, there tends to be some misleading information, some misconceptions. So we kind of want to have this platform, this podcast, to kind of just talk about it, and kind of deliver our views and opinions about these issues.
Yeah. So, guys, that sounds really interesting. If you guys do want to hear Uncovering Indonesia's podcast, they're available on Spotify, and you can go to their link and their Instagram, uncovering.indonesia. Yeah. So before we start, I just want to give an FYI to everyone. The law that we're referring to today is not finalized yet. Am I right? The draft. And so, yes. And
It's
so we're gonna, yeah,
it hasn't been ratified by the
yeah,
president.
that's it.
So it's been passed, but it's
Yeah.
not ratified. So, I mean, it's kind of your choice whether you want to call it omnibus bill or omnibus law. Like technically it hasn't been ratified, so some people kind of want to call it omnibus bill, but because the lingo omnibus law is like it's used by everyone, people
Yeah.
just make it easy and just say omnibus law.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
we're
it just
gonna
hasn't been
refer
ratified.
to the first draft that was publicly published because
The
that's
the
the one
latest
that,
one.
yeah, the latest one.
Yeah.
That's the one that we had a chance to study. Okay, so to get to the bottom of omnibus bills or laws impact to our environment, first we have to understand the basics of it. And that's what we're doing today, just understanding the basics and clarifying the implications. So, Reina, why don't you tell us what is omnibus law?
Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, guys, I just want to clarify, like I'm not a legislation expert or anything. I'm just as also a concerned citizen, and these are just like if I do kind of blurt out my views, these are my personal views. So I just want to get that out there first. But yeah, okay, let's talk about the omnibus law now. It's so the omnibus law conceptually, it's a law that compiles regulations from a number of various sectors. So it's derived from the Latin word, which means for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it is actually a single law that covers numerous distinct matters. And it's actually a popular concept around the world, like countries such as the US, the UK, Canada, they all have an omnibus law. And so what we're talking about here today is the omnibus law for job creation, or the RUU Cipta Kerja, which basically revises 79 existing laws and compiles it into one. So if you read the law, it actually talks about various different matters from labor to environment to trade, health, what else, land, and so on
Mm-hmm.
forth. So, and all of this is done to stimulate economic growth in Indonesia by creating new jobs, raise foreign and domestic investment, and make it easier for people to do business in Indonesia. And that's essentially why it was created. I think if you remember, like last year, there were a lot of talks where Indonesia was ranked very low in terms of investment because it was considered difficult to do business here.
Mm-hmm.
The reasoning for this was the overregulation, the bureaucracy, the inefficacy, lack of legal certainty, what else? Corruption. So the government wanted to fix this. They wanted to boost investment. So they introduced the idea of this omnibus law last year. Since the existing laws and regulations are seen as complicated, impractical, and results in the loss of potential investment, they wanted to establish this omnibus law to standardize and harmonize all of these regulations, to cut the red tape, remove all these unnecessary provisions, speed up and simplify the licensing process, protect businesses, and so on forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the surface, the omnibus law as a concept and the benefits of having this is actually abundant.
It's a very positive thing, like it
It
sounds
is.
like an incredible thing to have, but
On the surface it is. Honestly, I'm not I'm actually happy that, there is an intention, or there's a law with the objective of doing this, because I think I also experience it, like as a lawyer, that sometimes um, handling licenses and sometimes regulations can be really
yeah,
tricky, and they can be um,
slow.
really, they can take a really long time. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of, like, even if you're not a lawyer, I think if you're waiting for your IDs, who here hasn't had their IDs done?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? I mean,
So long.
it's that long process and kind of like uncertainty that they want to fix. So in a way, from the outset of it, it's actually a good idea to have this omnibus law.
Yeah, so if it's such a positive thing, why is the omnibus law that we have in Indonesia right now, why is it why is there such negativity surrounding it?
Okay. The negative kind of response is because of the issues surrounding it, because of the substance itself. So for me, conceptually, the omnibus law is wonderful, but the substance itself needs a lot of more discussions to be done.
Yeah.
And this is my personal view. I think the lawmaking process of it is sort of flawed. I feel like it was very rushed. It lacked public participation and it lacked transparency. So, just to take it back from the whole idea of it. So, when I first heard that it was passed, I was quite taken aback
Mhm.
because I thought they would spend more time on it. Like I read the bill when it first was issued earlier this year, I think around late February or early March, and I did notice some problematic articles in several areas. But I thought, okay, this is still a draft. I felt like they would discuss it further. They would involve stakeholders, experts, the public, and I thought that they would review and revise it. And in the months between, there were still comments that I see from the public, from the media, that people were not involved in it as much as they should. And then all of a sudden, I think 2 weeks ago on the 5th, right? Is that 2 weeks ago? Yeah, around 2 weeks ago, it was passed, like, and it was really, really surprising to me.
Yeah.
So I think as an idea, the omnibus law itself is not a problem. The problem is the drafting process of
Yeah.
it, because I think it lacked public participation, and that's why I feel like many people are protesting, especially in the labor and environment sector,
Mhm.
because it wasn't scrutinized, it wasn't involved, it wasn't discussed as much, and so there are issues inside it, surrounding issues surrounding it. And if only they took into considerations people concerns and livelihoods and all of these, and basically resolve all these issues, it would be so much better. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, the process was so rushed and it came at such a non-ideal time during the pandemic. So I'm hoping that even though they've passed it, I'm hoping they pull the brakes on this, and scrutinize it more.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so now we're gonna get into like the environmental aspect of
Yeah.
it, like we hear a lot about AMDAL, analysis, manajemen, dampak lingkungan. But a lot of my friends don't really know what it is juga, like could you explain to us what AMDAL is and like what is the purpose of AMDAL?
Okay. So UMDAL is one of the environmental safeguards, and I think we've heard that from our social media, from the articles, that it was deleted, but actually it isn't. It's not deleted. It's just reduced. Like its essence is reduced. It's weakened in a way. Um, And the AMDAL itself is short for Analisis Dampak Lingkungan, which is a study of a significant impact of a business's activities to the environment. So if a project is deemed to have potentially have an impact to the environment, an AMDAL is needed to make sure that these businesses and these activities can be done without damaging the environment. Now, not all businesses require AMDA, just the ones that may have a significant impact. And this impact is measured by looking at the types of activities, the extent of the area that would be affected, the estimated duration, the number of people that would be affected, the intensity of the impact, and other environmental components. So, businesses that exploit natural resources, changes the form of the environment, potentially cause pollution, uses new technology that may impact the environment. Now, these are all businesses that can qualify as needing to have an AMDA. So they will have their impact of their activities analyzed and studied to make sure that they can run sustainably, safely, without damaging the environment.
Mm-hmm. And what are the implications of the omnibus law to AMDAL, like if it's not completely eradicated.
Right. Like I said, contrary to the misconception, it's not removed. AMDAL is still required, but its importance or its impact as a safeguard has been reduced. So the Omnibus Law restricts or limits the public participation when we're formulating the AMDAL, and it removes the evaluation process. So just to give you like a little insight into the previous regime or what's actually provided in our current environmental law. In our current environmental law, the AMDAL is formulated or the analysis is organized by the public, people who are affected, environmental activists, and parties that are affected by all types of decisions in the process of AMDAL. And the reason for this is so that the public have the right to express their opinions, provide their suggestions, and provide responses to the business plans or activities. And after the AMDAL is formulated, it would be evaluated by a commission, Komisi Penilai AMDAL, that is established by the ministry, governor, or the regions. And this commission consists of environmental institutions, experts, potentially affected public, and environmental organizations. So that's the process. You formulate it, you study it, and then you have
Evaluate.
and you evaluate it. You have a commission that would evaluate it. And the problem, I think, one of the disappointments that I got from the Omnibus Law was the fact that it changes that. So first of all, Omnibus Law changes Article 26 of the Environmental Law, which talks about who may be involved in the formulation of the AMDAL. So it limits the public involvement. Like I mentioned, it used to be the affected public, activists, and basically anyone who would be impacted. Now, the only public that are allowed to or included in the formulation process is only the affected public. So again, it kind of leaves us room to talk about what about all these other people? What about the environmental activists? And secondly, I talked about the evaluation commission. Now, the Omnibus Law revokes Article 29 and 30, which talks about the evaluation commission. So now it's unclear whether the AMDAL would be evaluated or not. And if we read the law, the Omnibus provides that, matters concerning all of this would be further regulated in a government regulation, which has not been issued. So I'm hoping that this would all be clarified and there would still be a significant amount of involvement from the public. But as for now, the potential impact is that, aside from the affected public, people would not be able to express their opinions, provide suggestions, or respond to the proposed business activities.
Or like expert opinions almost, right? With the environmental consultants being taken outside of the drafting process of AMDAL. That's really scary. Because we don't know whether or not the people that are affected, like it's not clearly defined yet, so we don't know who does it involve and if they actually understand, like the implications of the business towards their environment that they're living in. Yeah. So what are the let's talk about izin lingkungan next, because I think AMDAL is covered just now. So what is izin lingkungan apart from AMDAL? What is it?
So the izin lingkungan is the environmental permit that must be obtained by businesses whose operations may impact or affect the environment. So if the business requires an AMDAL or an UKL-UPL, which is the environmental management and monitoring efforts, the business would need to have an izin lingkungan. And in the environmental law, businesses that would need an AMDAL would first have their, like I mentioned, they would have their AMDAL assessed, and then they would be able to apply for a environmental permit. And like I mentioned, there is also a revision on that in the Omnibus Law. So the revision is that it's no longer called an izin lingkungan. Rather, the name for it has been changed. It's now called Persetujuan Lingkungan, which makes it unclear the nature of this. Like, for example, if izin lingkungan, if a company abuses it, it can be revoked through state administration court. And now it's unclear. Can that still be done? Because now that it's called a Persetujuan Lingkungan, and also Article 38, which provides that izin lingkungan can be revoked through state administration court, has been removed. So it kind of just leaves like us to wonder whether or not it would be as effective as the izin lingkungan. Now, it would all be clarified in a government regulation, but while waiting for this regulation, I feel like there is this lack of legal certainty that can be dangerous and it could be abused. So that's basically kind of the repercussions of changing
Um,
the Omnibus Law. Sorry, changing the izin lingkungan in the Omnibus Law.
um,
But I'm hoping again that, sorry,
no, please go
what?
ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, I'm hoping that in the government regulation that would be issued, it would be further clarified.
Yeah. And we have to wait for the implementation law, the government regulation to come out, right? For us to actually
Yeah.
understand whether or not it's going to be that difficult. We have a question here from Susie. She asked, is the persetujuan lingkungan very easy to obtain? Maybe not very easy, but like, is it easier to obtain now than izin lingkungan?
Yeah, so the point of the Omnibus Law is actually to simplify and kind of ease the process of everything. So, from my review of the law, from the looks of it, I think that the Persetujuan Lingkungan would be sub
Easier.
substantially easier to obtain. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is the purpose of
Yes.
Omnibus Law, yeah, is to ease people's investment. So, they want to make it faster and more efficient. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Plus,
So,
there wouldn't be, yeah, there wouldn't be the evaluation or the assessment of the AMDA. I mean, if that's true, because if we see it's been removed, so if that's really true, then from the start of it, from the whole process of it, it would already be kind of simplified and made it easier.
yeah. Oh, by the way, guys, if you have any questions, just drop it off in the chat box and we can go through it as we go. Yeah.
I think if I were to make it into like make the whole process into something like kind of simpler, I would kind of similarize it with, an easy situation. For example, like when you're in college, right? And you're doing skripsi, for example. It's kind of like that. Like the AMDAL, you've studied it, you've researched it, you've analyzed it, but then if it's not examined by your professor or it's not tested or assessed, is it really effective? Is it
Mhm.
really, I mean, how do you know that this research that you've done, this analysis that you've done is correct? So you don't know how well you actually did, right?
Mhm.
And you wouldn't be so sure if the analysis of your topic is correct. And that's the importance of this evaluation of the AMDA because they have these people in the evaluation commission, like I mentioned, these are experts. They have the knowledge regarding the impacts that would arise. So I'm afraid that businesses which would actually have a significant impact or damage to the environment would simply get away with it. They would not be identified. It would be difficult to assess the ways in which they could run sustainably without harming the environment. They would just get their AMDAL, get their keputusan, get their persetujuan lingkungan, and and eventually perizinan berusaha, and immediately be able to operate. And if they actually do cause damage, it would be too late. The harm would be already done. So this is for me is very concerning. Like at the outset of it, like if you kind of just look at the law, I mean, from the outset of it, okay, izin lingkungan it's just changed, namanya is just changed, and the AMDAL is still there. So in the outset, it doesn't seem like a big issue, but if you actually kind of just think about it and kind of compare it with the current law, you can see that the protection are actually loosened and the safeguards are actually reduced. And so that's what we're afraid of.
If you guys like want to understand a little bit more about like the difference between izin and persetujuan, I suggest you guys read up on it because there's an actual like different way, like the processes of obtaining an izin lingkungan and different processes of obtaining persetujuan. So these are the uncertainties that Reina here is saying. It's like they don't explain to us yet what entails the changing of the name from izin to persetujuan. So hopefully in the future we get to see another regulation being made surrounding this that would clear up this confusion. That is our hope. A message of hope by Project Plan
That
Egg
is
and
our hope.
Reina. Yeah, so moving on to like I guess the environmental crime side of things, like I
Mhm.
know there are issues about strict liability, or in Indonesian it's called tanggung jawab mutlak. Could you explain to us like what strict liability is, like that concept first before we get into like how
Yeah.
omnibus? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so strict liability, it's a popular concept for environmental law. It's basically a principle which is applied to the concept where, like, when someone keeps a hazardous substance on their premises, when a business does that, they would be held responsible if such substances escape the premises and causes damage to the environment. Now, they can be held responsible under this concept without having to prove their fault. And it provides that someone can be held liable not just because of the mistake, but from the fact that they actually keep or deal with these hazardous substances in the first place. And our in current environmental law, in Article 88, provides this. It provides that any businesses or individual who uses or produces or manages hazardous toxic waste and causes serious threat to the environment shall be responsible for the incurred losses without having to prove that they are at fault. But the problem is the Omnibus Law removes this last sentence about not having to prove that they are at fault. So it removes the essence of strict liability because the whole point of strict liability is that someone would be held liable for the fact that they're keeping or dealing with
Mhm.
the hazardous toxic waste, right?
Even without proof
So
of intent.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So now that Article 88 has been revised and that last sentence has been removed, it kind of just gives us, makes us wonder, like, would still strict liability still apply in this instance? And I think for strict liability is actually a very important aspect, very important concept for environmental law. It's enshrined in many environmental laws around the world, and it was amazing that we had it in our
Our
environmental
environmental law.
law,
Yeah.
exactly, Law 30 2009, and now it's not there anymore because of the omnibus law. And I'm hoping, again, I'm still hopeful that the government regulation would kind of amend this, or
Mm.
they would, elaborate on this, and that the government would still assure us that strict liability principle is still followed or implemented. But yeah, I mean, right now we're basically just waiting for that regulation to be issued, and we're waiting for that explanation.
Yeah.
But just from the outset of it, like for now, that would be my concern. That would be my view.
That is mine too. Like before we could understand like the reason why Reina just now said it's really important in environmental law is because it's so hard to prove environmental crimes.
Yeah.
Especially in Indonesia, there's lots of illegal logging, forest fires that started by unknown parties, and these are usually done under the blanket. I don't know how to say it, but like behind the scenes. So we don't know it and we can't really prove it. But with at least with that strict liability concept in our previous law, and our UU 32 2009, at least it was said that without having to prove it so much, like it should be able to, they should be liable for their actions. Basically, it's as clear as day. Like if they do it, they harm it, then they're, responsible for it, and they should take responsibility. Yeah. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
guys, the one that just joined us, if you guys want to ask questions, please go ahead and put it in the chat box. Yeah, so I feel like that's it for now for like the AMDAL is in lingkungan and strict liability. It's because this IG Live is honestly just to explain to our community more about like the basics of the Omnibus Law and why we as concerned citizens are very concerned about what's going on. So I'm gonna open this session just for like 10 minutes to see if anyone has any questions. If not, then we finished kind of early. Do you have any other concerns, Reina, that you might want to, share about the
I
Omnibus Law?
do. I do actually, and I just thought of it because you mentioned illegal logging and deforestation just now, forest fires. I also like to mention that um, in the Omnibus Law, so again, like I mentioned, that it amends all of these regulations. So it amends our environmental law, but it also amends our law on forestry and our law on the protection and management of our forests. And in that aspect, it actually, unfortunately, based on my reading, is that the Omnibus Law removes the legal protection for primary forest cover, which would actually raise the risk of massive deforestation. So previously, areas or provinces in Indonesia must maintain a minimum forest cover of 30% on provincial land. Now, the Omnibus Law amends Article 18 of the Forestry Law to allow central government to determine the amount based on considerations. So it was like specified, the minimum was specified as 30%. Now it's just up for
Up in the
their
air.
own discretion to determine, up in the
Yeah.
air. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, I think this is really concerning because we're talking about the environment, right? And Indonesia supplies more than half of the world's palm oil, and we contribute, and that palm oil industry contribute to um, quite a big percentage to the country's GDP. But it's actually a major cause of deforestation in Indonesia. And we had that minimum to protect our forest areas. But if that minimum is reduced, it may have a devastating impact on the environment. So this is really concerning because it could increase land clearance and it could escalate conflicts over land and the rights of the indigenous people. And so forests that are home to these industries, these plantations, could very well be jeopardized.
Mm-hmm.
And but I do have to mention that I mean I read from both sides. Like I actually read the law itself, but I also um, go out of my way to actually also read and listen to the government's
Position.
explanation on why they
Yeah.
removed the position exactly
Yeah.
why they removed certain articles. And I read that the Minister of the Environment, she said that the provision would actually allow the government to set a stricter standard and allow them to, set the standards proportionately. But by removing the minimum, who can really guarantee that? You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
that's for me, really, really, it kind of worries me in a way that this was removed. And I'm hoping that again, all of the provision, almost all the provisions in the omnibus law, they direct us to the government regulation. They say,
Yeah.
okay, all of these other details will be further regulated in a government regulation. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm hopeful that it's not as bad as we think when we do read the government regulation. And I'm hoping that there comes a silver lining from all of these revisions. But from the outset of it, like based on my current
Yeah.
reading
What
of
we
it,
see right now.
it's
Mm-hmm.
concerning me a lot. And also the fact that it removes the provision from the environmental law, from the forestry law, which prohibits cutting down trees and forest area. So I'm not sure why Article
What?
50 was revised to remove that prohibition, but again, I'm
Yeah.
really unsure about that aspect. I
Yeah.
mean, you would have to really have another talk with the government,
Yeah.
have an
Yeah. You
IG
have
live
to
with the
like
government to
talk to
actually
the
like
House of
talk
Representative.
exactly
Yeah.
and why this was actually deleted.
Yeah.
But those are just, some of my concerns. And also, like I mentioned, the whole omnibus law, the concept of it, the objective of it was to simplify licenses, right? So licenses that are required for forest protection was actually also simplified. It's now generalized. So if we look at the law itself, we went from having specific permits such as the forest utilization permit, non-timber forest production collection permit, and so on forth. It's now generalized into one. And conceptually, yes, it would speed up the licensing process, but I'm afraid in its implementation, it would not be as effective as when we actually have all of these licenses specified and separate.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my
Yeah.
concerns about it. The loosening of the environmental protections, the weakening of the safeguards. I'm just afraid that it would lead to widespread deforestation and habitat loss, and major, like substantial damage to our
Mm-hmm.
environment. Because we have to
It's
remember that, our rainforests are, I think, the world's third largest, right?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And our people ourselves, we really depend on our biodiversity. And right now, deforestation is a huge issue. It's already driving so many species towards extinctions, and so I'm just afraid that if all of these protections that we actually already do have and deforestation is still happening, if it's actually loosened and weakened, then things may very well possibly get worse and become more detrimental. Like the impacts would be more seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are my concerns about all of this.
I
It's
hope.
it's it's really it's a really complicated thing, trust me. I mean, this whole past 2 weeks have been really, really tiring because the
Yeah.
draft keeps on changing, and I had to like make sure that um
They're up
these
to date.
are they're up to date exactly, and that the law actually says what it says,
Yeah.
and I had to compare, with the law, and I had to find out why, like listen to the government's position of it, why this is happening, and all that. Um, but yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
just simply a concerned citizen, and I
Yeah.
really wanted to know why, and that's the reasons. Those are the reasons.
Yeah. From like an environmentalist point of view, like an environmental organization point of view, like obviously we see, like we kind of just feel a little bit, we feel really anxious basically, because
Yeah.
it's almost like we get it. There, these are hard times. We get that the need to drive our economy up. We get it, but
Mhm.
um loosening our regulations, the one that were put there in the first place for a reason, like so rushed, if
Mhm.
they had put more thought into it, and we could clearly see perhaps like, oh yeah, they really thought that there's no loopholes here, it doesn't just loosen the perizinan just because for the sake of making it easier to obtain, but in fact it's like still tight knit. Like they companies can't just do whatever they want. They can just obtain the
Mhm.
studio lingkungan however they want. Then we would be like, oh okay. But now everyone's like, oh no, like what's gonna happen to us? So. Like Reina says, guys, it's all just like a waiting game now. Like we're just waiting to see the next move from the government regulation. We're waiting to study it and speaking our minds about it. Concerning, I have a question here from Hayston, um, concerning especially on the social and environmental side. So basically, it will make it easier for companies to hurt the environment. Mm,
To a certain extent, from the outset of it, it does seem to be that way because,
mhm,
again, these protections and safeguards are there to make sure that even if businesses are around, they would have to basically be analyzed and they would have to be assessed and everything. And if these safeguards are reduced or weakened, then it could have the risk of making it easier, not just companies, but basically anyone to hurt the environment from their activities.
mhm,
And so essentially, yes,
mm-mm.
but that is that's my personal view on it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have different views about it. And I've spoken to a lot of people, like they read the articles differently. They say, no, but this would be okay because the UMDAL is still there and there's still going to be sufficient monitoring from the government. And people would have the different views of looking at this. And so I do encourage everyone to actually also read it. Like I mentioned the articles before, but if you want to read up more on a specific concept of it, you can ask me for the article, and I can tell you what the article is or what page it is in the Omnibus Law, which is 812 pages, guys. Just gonna have to get it out there. It's 812. So if you wanna kind of learn more about the strict liability, or you want to learn more about the changes in the AMDA, you can ask me, and I can give you the page, and you can read it for yourself and have your own view on what the repercussions could potentially be. It could be your own. You could have your own conclusion or your view about it. But from my personal view, the weakening of the safeguards and the loosening of these protections may definitely make it easier for someone or a business to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a
Like
negative
Reina.
impact to our environment.
Yeah. And like Reina said, like we're not sure yet, like whether or not the government has thought that far into it, Like maybe the one that we see right now isn't as bad as it is. Maybe, perhaps they actually thought deeply into it, and then the next government regulation will actually explain and elaborate, all these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
don't lose hope first, guys.
Yes. And I mean, also I have to still mention that our government has in several occasions pushed or committed for Indonesia to have a green growth economic development, have economic growth and environmental sustainability go hand in hand. I personally don't think that the current draft of the Omnibus Law reflects that. Again, like what Cynthia said, like I'm hoping that the implementing regulations, the government regulations, they would kind of elaborate on this more and actually provide stricter means. They would regulate, like for example, about the 30%. Maybe, just maybe, guys, just cross our fingers and hope that the government regulations would provide that there would still be a minimum, and even though it would be decided upon discretion of the government, they cannot reduce it to a specific minimal amount. So again, we would have to wait and see. I'm just providing my views on the current draft, on my reading of it, and we should stay alert. Of course, we should stay alert. We should just keep updated and not only learn from what the media is
Media.
saying,
Yeah.
because sometimes the media can provide misleading information, like how they said that the UMDAL was removed when it in
Remove.
fact wasn't. And to do that, you can just rely on the I think reliable sources. I think there are environmental consultants that would provide their analysis on the Omnibus Law and the impacts of it. Like they are much more credible because they are the experts. So yeah, so
You're
it's it's
fine
it's
right
it's
now. We, we
important.
we agree with you 100%.
Don't do that. I would love it if you
No,
guys
I mean, yeah, we'll study it
like
ourselves as
talk
well,
about
guys.
it.
Yeah,
and
we're
and I'm also really really open to, like, if you want to discuss it, and
yeah,
and if you want to know more about it,
yeah.
and you
Even
can
debate
totally,
with Reina about your
yes.
opinions today. It's completely fine. We love it.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. I really, really love discussing about it with anyone, really. And I actually love it when I'm discussing with someone with who has a different view than me. So it
Mhm,
allows me to kind of put myself in their shoes, to kind of see things from a different perspective, because that's also really
mhm,
important, guys. That's why I'm always looking for the explanation from the government, just to see
mhm.
what is actually in their heads when they were drafting all of this.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I don't. I'm not, I hope that no one is making this with the intention of hurting our home, right?
yeah,
So I'm hoping that there is a silver lining, that there is some sort of still benefit, because the law in itself sounds to sounds really helpful and beneficial for everyone. I'm just hoping that these issues are sorted out. All of our concerns are listened to, they're taken into consideration, and I'm hoping that before it's ratified, um, it's put a lot of thought more. It's scrutinized more, so that the law itself that is final and ratified is one that is without all of the issues. It's one that basically protects all of us. It not
yeah.
only does it push for economic growth, but it still protects our rights, our environment, our rights, as in like our labor rights, because that was also
Mhm.
like a huge
There's
issue
an
as well.
issue, yeah.
Exactly.
With the
But
demo now, it's also about that.
exactly. I mean, it's divided
Big,
into those
yeah.
two big issues. I mean, again, guys, if you actually look at it, there's like a lot of sectors with problematic articles as well. But yeah, if we look at the protests, and if we look at what the media is saying, those are the big, big issues that
Issues right
everyone
now,
is
yeah.
most concerned about. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a final question here. I guess it ties up to
Okay.
our conclusion. But what can we
Hmm.
do to demand change from the current draft of Omnibus Law?
Okay. So there are actually a lot of ways, I think, to voice our concerns. First of all, before we voice our concerns, I would really encourage you guys to read up on it, because um, when I saw the demonstrations, like the protests, some of them are protesting about something that was not even in the omnibus law, right? Some people they listen to misleading information and they get angry, and so they go down and protest. So there's nothing wrong with protesting. Protesting is amazing. It's a really great way for us to show, and to basically, it's a way for us to show that we love our country, that we are part of it. We want to be involved in everything. It's our right, right, for public participation. But before you go down, just make sure that you have all the right information, and you're angry about the right things. You're not angry about the wrong things. You're not angry about something that's not even an issue, something that's not
Yeah.
even there. So that's number one. And second, do what you can in your own way. There's so many people that's doing things differently. There's people that are going down, to the streets to protest, but there's also people that are doing it through social media. There's also people that are actually reaching out to these representatives and asking them, like, what is going on? Why did you do that? Um, so there's a lot of ways, and the thing is, there's not one specific correct way. It just depends on you, exactly what you can do in your own capabilities, in your own time. Just make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, and doing it based on calculated decisions. Your
Own
action
opinion.
for it is
Yeah.
nuanced. Yeah, it's your own opinion about
Mhm.
it. And I know it's such a pain to read 812, guys, but I mean, you don't have to read the whole law. Just, you can read like the specific issue, the specific sector that is that you feel most passionate about. And those are just, I think, around 20-ish pages or 30
Mhm.
at most. They're not like 812. It's not the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So so yeah, and I think that's the best way. Is the best way you can do is your own way. Just make sure that you do things. And
Yeah.
I kind of also want to mention that we can use this as a learning curve, guys. We can use
Mhm.
this to kind of learn from our mistakes. And in the next election, when we're picking our representatives, when we're picking our leaders, make sure that we research them first. Like we have to make sure that, they're committed to, they have the same, like they have a passion in
Value.
resolving the issues, they have values, they have integrity. Um, for example, what are the issues that you're concerned about? You're concerned about women's rights, children's rights, environmental rights. You research the candidates when they're announced. You research, okay, which one of these candidates actually are committed to resolving these issues? Which candidate can voice out my concerns? Which candidate has the sufficient integrity, capability to make a difference, to make a positive difference.
Yeah.
I have to add that. Make a positive difference um,
Yeah.
in our country,
Mhm.
and not just vote for the most popular, not vote for someone who you think, you know
Everyone else
is
is
really
voting for.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I saw that, those that are actually chosen, or those that, from the outset they look really interesting when they do public speaking. They're very
Yeah.
popular, they're very generous
Yeah.
when they were campaigning. But remember, guys, sometimes campaigning is different than what they actually do when they're on office, right? So we have to really make sure and reach out to them. Reach out to when you're, I think the regional representatives elections are coming up, right? So, research them, reach out to them, and you can reach out to them like with a group. Like for example, Project Planet can reach out as a group, or with other environmental groups as well, and basically, find out what are the issues that they are passionate about, and what are the issues that they are committed to resolving for our country.
Yeah.
And if you're sure, and if you're certain, if you've made that calculated decision, then you choose them. But that's basically what we can do. That's the
Yeah.
minimum we can do. Basically, there's no right or wrong. Um, just participate. I'm really, really happy to see like social media is full of people that are, voicing out their concerns. I love it so much. I'm
It's really
so happy
exciting.
to see
Yeah.
it. It is,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, I didn't see this like before, like in the previous years, people were not as political or as involved in all of these issues, but I'm really happy to see that now. So yeah, I think keep it up and
Yeah.
do your own
We're
thing.
doing good, guys. Look at you, all 23 of you that's here right now. Thank you so much for listening to our opinions. And yeah, as Serena said, just make sure you read up on it. Make sure you know how to prevent this to happen in the future by, choosing the right representatives that you feel reflect your values. And if you guys have any other questions, just drop us a DM, or you can follow Reina in her Instagram, reina.fs. Am I right?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
it
Yeah.
is, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Reina.fs, guys. And you can also ask her and debate to her on these topics. I think. I don't know. I'm just saying it, but
You.
I hope, okay, I hope I have your permission. Yeah, so thank you
Sure,
so
sure.
much, Reina. Ooh, for joining us. This has been a really great conversation, I think.
Thank
I'm learning a
you. Thank you
lot.
for having me.
Of course, we need
Thank you for having
you.
me. I love it. I'm so happy we get to catch up and talk to you
Yes.
guys and discuss it with
Yeah.
you. It's been so nice. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you everyone for coming and listening, and have a great rest of your Sunday, and you too, Karina. And
You
thank you. I
too.
think that's it. Yeah, thank you. Bye. Have a
Bye.
great day, guys. Bye. Bye. Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.